Perhaps Katie, you can tell me when the web stream's. Are we web streaming yet?
Yes.
Okay, right. So,
Chair.
Welcome to this. Yes,
Chair,
Councillor.
sorry to interject. I've clicked on the chat and it says I'm not a member of the chat, so I don't know what's happened.
Well, perhaps I could ask Katie to check that to make sure that you are linked into that. But you're in the hearing, which is the key thing, I think.
Yeah. Yes, Chair.
So we'll keep
Chair,
an eye
if you just continue,
Yeah.
Councillor Locke can raise her hand if she hasn't got access to the chat at the moment, and I will see if I can get that sorted.
Yes, okay. Okay, well, I'll go into the formalities now.
Chair, I don't have access to the chat either, but I do have the speech bubble, which I've not had on previous occasions. So there's a bit of progress there, but I don't have access.
Okay, well, just as I'll make clear, I mean, people can signify in the normal way or raise their hand or whatever, or indeed, officers will indicate. It's just that I can't always see everybody, though I can see the person speaking at the time when the hearing's on. Okay, so let's go into the formal hearing. I'm Councillor Philip Davis. So I'll be chairing the hearing of Subcommittee A of Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Asking all people to mute microphones before we start, as that will assist the sound quality while I outline the procedure. And also, if you can turn off your cameras, with the exception of committee members, unless you're the person speaking. And committee members will have the cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could everyone attending today's meeting put the mobile phones on silent and ensure there is a situation in the room or environment which is free from distractions? And it's vitally important, for what are obvious reasons, that those attending these meetings and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I can also confirm that this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that a general public can view it. So onto the formal agenda. Item 1, notice of recording webcast. I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast via the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that members of the press public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. And then item 3, apologies and notification of nominee members. Councillor Locke is the nominee member for Councillor Higgs today. And fourthly, I confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of June 2021 and sign them. Okay, those are the formalities. So can I welcome you to this hearing to consider the summary review in respect of the licence for Casey Joe's Public House and Restaurant, 1293 to 1295 Warwick Road, Acox Green, B27 6PU. As I said, my name is Councillor Davis. I'm chairing the meeting. With me today are members of the subcommittee, Councillors Martin Straker-Wells and Councillor Mary Locke. Also present in the meeting are the licensing officer, Mr. David Kennedy, committee manager, Ms. Katie Townsend, committee lawyer, Ms. Joanne Swampillai. What I'd like to now do is ask the parties to just confirm their presence here. Firstly, the applicant, West Midlands Police.
Good morning, Chair. Yeah, it's Huram Taj from West Midlands Police Licensing, Birmingham.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Taj. And next, those making representations. Again, if you could just signify when I read your name. Mr. Michael Power.
Good morning, Chair. I am present.
Thank you. Ms. Mary McCarthy,
Good morning, Chair. I am present.
Mr. Noel McManim,
Yeah, good morning, Chair. I'm present.
Ms. Carol Scanlon,
Good morning, Chair. I'm present.
Ms. Angela Gilbride.
Good morning, Chair. I'm present.
Thank you very much. And next, the representative for the licence holder, Mr. Craig.
Yeah, just before I do it, I think it's Mr. McMenamin for future reference, Chair. I struggled with it as well, so you're not on your own. But it's, he's too polite to correct you himself. Yeah, I'm here to represent the licence holder, Caroline Dowling, who sits to my left.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so those are the introductions. Can I ask if any of the persons making representations wishes to withdraw their representation at this stage of the hearing? Anybody want to withdraw their representations?
No, Chair.
No. I'll take that silence as an indication that you don't wish to withdraw. Okay, thank you very much. And I'll assume all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee procedural rules sent out with notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact the meeting is taking place online, but assure you all that such amendments will not impact on the party's right to a fair hearing. We'll be using the chat function. I know everybody's not got this, but basically, if you have got it, if you could indicate in there, or rather, if you want to speak, there's a raise hand function. Again, this is a bit academic if you haven't got these, because I know some attendees won't have it. But the point is, you can also indicate verbally or by raising your hand if you wish to speak. But I will try and come to people in turn in any case. But we always do this. So can you, if you have the chat function, can you just access that chat function by typing your own name now into that function, which we will also do because it helps with the record of the meeting. So I'm going to type my name into the chat function there.
Chair, there seems to be a problem with some people's Microsoft Teams because I haven't got access to the chat function, and I believe Councillor Locke hasn't either. So just to make you aware of that.
Okay, let's dispense with that then. Okay, so let's move on from that. Okay, don't worry if you can't type into that. Okay, right. And again, I don't think we've got any people who've dialed in by audio telephone. I think we're all online. So again, with the exception of subcommittee members, if you could please keep your camera off unless you are the person speaking. For any problems with bandwidth which cause difficulty with the sound, I'm at my discretion ask everyone to turn the cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone able to hear and be heard. Okay, we're on to preliminary points now. Does anyone wish to make a preliminary point at this stage? Actually, let me go to you individually, given the chat function issue. Mr. Craig, any preliminary points from you?
I guess I've not had a chance to speak to West Midlands Police. I sent them some footage this morning. I just want to see if they've had the chance to view it and well, they've received it and had a chance to view it. I didn't send it to Birmingham City Council because your server is not of sufficient capability to take anything over 10 megabytes based on my previous experience. It isn't crucial to this hearing, but it was something Constable Reader requested that I serve on the police, and I just wanted to check with Hurren that that's been received.
Okay. So, Mr. Taj, have you received that?
Yes, I have received it, and I have managed to view it this morning.
Great, thank you very much. Cheers.
Okay, okay. And again, in terms of the people making representations, preliminary points are really like a technical issue, like the one that's just been indicated. Do you have any Any practical issues of that sort, anybody? Again, I'll take silence as assent to that.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. I do have a preliminary point to make as well.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I should have come to you, shouldn't I? Okay, so could you? Yeah. Do you have? What's your point?
One point is we do have some CCTV that has been witnessed before in the previous hearings regarding this matter. If it does determine that it should be witnessed today, I would ask that it be shown in a private hearing, as it just does show the injured party. I'm not sure if yourself has seen it and whether other councils have seen it. If it is relevant to see it again today, I request that be done in a private session, please.
Okay, we've had a preliminary discussion in our private session about that, and certainly my two colleagues have seen it. I haven't seen it, but if it becomes particularly relevant, obviously we'll take your point. So thank you for that. We're aware of that one.
Thank you.
So that's your preliminary point. Again, persons making representations. Again, I've had no indication from you of preliminary points, so I'll press on unless anyone indicates. Right. Now I'll talk about the procedure before we finally get on. Firstly, the licensing officer, Mr. David Kennedy, will present the report. Then the applicant, which is West Midlands Police, will be asked to present their case. We're asking that this be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Then those who've made representations will be invited to make their case. Again, we set aside 20 minutes for that in total across the 5 persons. Then the licence holder will be invited to make their case. And again, 20 minutes broadly is allowed for that presentation to the hearing. And again, can I ask all parties speak as slowly and clearly as they can, because officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and the meeting is also being live streamed. If at any time somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone. And again, if you've got the chat function, you can use that to communicate as necessary. Please note the members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try not to do so until the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted, usually unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, this is reference to the chat facility, so I'll skip this. A lot of this is about the chat, yes, okay. Anyway, any technical problems that cut you off from hearing or seeing what's going on, please indicate. If you can't use the chat, then it's important to ring one of the officers, but we'll notice anyway, and therefore we will we'll take necessary steps to pause the proceeding if any key persons are cut off. It may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting while the members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then return to this meeting and continue. Please note, if we have any problems with the live stream, as I've indicated, we will take steps to pause the meeting and ensure everybody can recommunicate. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. And can I stress that no decision will be taken until all evidence has been heard. At the decision stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision. They will then go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that the members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision, and you will be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within the appropriate time limits. I hope that's reasonably clear. So what I'd like to do now is ask the licensing officer, David Kennedy, to present the report, please. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman. On the 1st of July 2021, Assistant Chief Constable Payne applied for a review under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003 of the premises licence granted to Caroline Dowling in respect of Casey Joe's Public House and Restaurant 1293 to 1295 Warwick Road, Birmingham, B27 6PU. The application and accompanying certificate are attached to Appendix 1. Since the application was submitted, licensing subcommittees have convened on 3 occasions, initially on the 2nd of July, when the committee resolved to suspend the premises licence and remove the designated premises supervisor, a decision which was subsequently maintained on the 7th of July. As a result of further representations being received from the licence holder, a licensing subcommittee met on the 20th of July, and having heard from the licence holder's legal representative and West Midlands Police, resolved that the suspension be lifted, that Caroline Dowling being reinstated as designated premises supervisor, and that the conditions of the licence be modified until the determination of today's hearing. Copies of the decision notices of the subcommittees are attached to Appendices 2, 4 and 6. The review application was advertised by the licensing authority in accordance with the regulations. Representations have been received from other persons in support of the licence holder, which are attached to Appendices 7 to 47. A copy of the current premises licence is attached to Appendix 48 and site location plans at Appendix 49. Yesterday, the licence holder's legal representative submitted an updated version of the conditions agreed with West Midlands Police and their risk assessment as supporting documents, which have been disclosed to members this morning. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council statement of licence policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Act. The authority's functions under the Act are to promote the 4 licensing objectives. The options available to the committee today are to modify the conditions of licence, exclude a licensable activity from the scope of the licence, remove the designated premises supervisor, suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, revoke the licence, or take no action. In addition, the subcommittee will need to decide what action, if any, should be taken regarding the interim steps as modified on the 20th of July. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So now I'll come to Mr. Taj, West Midlands Police. Would you like to make your representations, please?
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. I'll try my best to keep this as brief and informative as possible. This is the 4th occasion we're convening regarding this incident that occurred at Casey Joel's, and to seek appropriate action as a result of licensing intervention. So police officers were called to a serious assault at the premises on June 27th. CCTV was obtained from the premises over the following days. As a result of what was witnessed on the CCTV in relation to the assault and the COVID breaches that aggravated it, licensing officers felt it necessary to begin the expedited review proceedings to bring this license to review and bring immediate enforcement action to the premise to prevent further neglect of the licensing objectives and prevent the possibility of further crime and disorder taking place. I'll give a brief overview of how we got to where we are today. The first hearing on July 2nd saw interim steps come into effect. These were the removal of the DPS, Caroline Dowling, and the suspension of the licence until a review hearing of the premise licence. The DPS or any representatives were not present for this hearing. On July 3rd, officers attended the premises to find the premise was still operating its premise licence with the sale of alcohol and claimed not to be aware of the subcommittee's decision around the imposed interim steps. I cannot determine if this statement is in fact true, but I have seen CCTV, as mentioned by Mr. Duncan today, that showed the premise closed a short while after the licensing officer attended and made aware of the license suspension. This would suggest that this to be an honest mistake. The CCTV for July 3rd also shows they remain closed for the remainder of the day. The interim steps were challenged on 2 occasions. One unsuccessful challenge with an updated COVID risk assessment plan. July 20th, the interim steps were challenged again due to a significant change to the business, with the European Championships and the COVID regulations coming to an end. One of the one of the changes they brought into place was the premise had a new risk assessment installed. The risk assessment was done by Helen Overton. She's a third-party risk assessor who has done risk assessments for many licensed premises, and an assessor from the licensing team have worked with on many occasions and hold in high regard. Two, their license is a rather old one. So to better promote the license objectives, they have offered up conditions to make it more enforceable and more effective. The license holder has continually engaged in positive discussions with licensing to make amends and continually attempt to appease Westminster Police and the committee. July 20th, the premise interim steps to suspend the license and remove the DPS were lifted. The interim steps were replaced with what I've just discussed about, with a thorough overhaul of the premise license operating conditions. We have treated this incident as an isolated incident at the premise with regards to code regulations. Apologies, sorry. I'll start again. We have treated this as an isolated incident at the premise, which prior to code regulations, they've had no issues in terms of licensing. Although this assault was aggravated by the COVID breaches which began this process, the premise has acknowledged there were shortfalls in management on the day of the assault, and that they had taken their foot off the pedal in upholding these regulations. Their response to include a new risk assessment and review their operating conditions shows they are working to uphold the licensing objectives and shake the complacency they had. Since reopening last week, there have been no disorders that we are aware of at this point, which indicates the interim steps have served their purpose in upholding the licensing objectives. For that reason, Westminster Police would ask that the interim conditions be imposed onto the license as a result of this hearing outcome. If the management operates within these parameters of these updated conditions with the support of their updated assessments, then they have all the tools they need to uphold the licensing objectives. There is one amendment, as has been mentioned today, to the interim steps conditions, and it's around the bespoke conditions. I'll let Mr. Duncan talk about that further in his representations, but we have discussed that with him, and we are in agreement that this will not impact on licensing objectives. I said this is the fourth time convening around this matter. I try to keep it brief, as informative as possible, and not take as much of your time. If you have any questions or anything that you want to be made more clear, I'm ready for questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Taj. That's very helpful. Questions from members. Councillor Locke?
Nothing from me, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Straker-Wells?
And me, Chair. No, thank you.
Okay. So just to summarise, Mr. Taj, these these updated conditions represent a point of agreement between
Sorry, Chair, you're cutting out. I can't hear you. Hello?
Chair, I think you're cutting out. You sound like Norman Collier, Chair. I still can't hear you.
And the license. Okay. Let me just see.
Chair, you're on mute.
Is that better? Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now, Chair.
Chair, we've just lost Duncan Craig as well, so we'll just wait and see if he comes back, and I'll try and get in contact with him.
All right, we'll wait for that, obviously.
U41. Yes. Right. No, 41 now. Yeah.
Chair, you're on mute.
Is he back yet?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Craig, you're back with us, and I'm back with us.
Yeah, I don't know what happened at my end. You were, for those of sufficient vintage to remember, you sounded like Norman Collier.
Thank you for that.
Anyway,
Okay.
There we go. And thank you for getting my name right, unlike Mr. Taj, but I'm sure he'll get used to calling me Mr. Craig eventually. But
okay, thank you for that. Right, okay, I think we are on to your good self. I know we're on to the representations by members of the public now.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Before we move to that, I think you were asking a question of West Midlands Police as to whether there was an agreed position.
Yes, I was. That's true.
That didn't come across. If you could.
Yeah. So again, Mr. Taj, just by way of summary, there is an agreed position now between the licence holder and yourselves on the modified conditions.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Okay. So we've dealt with member questions there. So now I move on to the members of the public making representations. So can I come to Mr. Power first? And again, we're trying to keep the whole thing within 20 minutes. So if you could talk for maximum of about 4 minutes, then that would be helpful. Mr. Power, what would you like to tell the subcommittee?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I first started working at Casey Joe's under Caroline Dowling when I was 18, and I worked for about 2 years. And throughout the whole time I worked there, she was nothing but responsible, warm and caring. So she helped me learn the ropes within the first few months. If I ever had any questions I was unsure of, she'd be quick to help. And not only would she help with work-related matters, she's also friendly, caring, if there's any personal matters I needed. And she's always been open and available to her staff, which is also like a credit to herself as a landlady, and I'd say as a mother. Then on top of that, so her vast experience as a landlady, whenever I worked there, felt like she maintained control and order in the pub. Even like busy bank holiday shifts and big events such as, let's say, the football, so Birmingham City against Aston Villa or the All Ireland events, be busy, but at no point did I ever feel as an employee I was unsafe or afraid. It was actually quite the opposite. It was friendly, fun, and it was always safe for both like staff and the clientele in there. As well as that, though, Caroline also knows when to maintain public safety and prevents things from going overboard. So examples would be, if it's a busy shift like the Birmingham City Aston Villa game, we'd change drinks from glasses to plastic cups early, so to save like glasses being smashed, and we'd have like a 1 in, 1 out policy. So as I said, it would never get too overwhelming, and it'd always be safe for the staff and for the clientele. And then another example of when I worked there to show Caroline, there was a young girl, I'd say she was 19, 20, outside the front. We were locking up the pub. We were about to go home, and she was waiting for a taxi. She was on her own. And instead of Caroline just driving past, she asked her, how are you getting back? She said she was getting a lift, but she said that her person's lift wouldn't be there for 10 minutes. So Caroline said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll wait. If you need a lift home, we'll drop you. But if not, we'll wait 10 minutes till your lift comes, so you're not on your own waiting around at night time. So we waited for that for 10 minutes, and the girl got a lift. If that doesn't show her nature just as a landlady, like a selfless, like her caring nature, then I don't really know what else does. And then, one more thing to sum it up is her role in the community I'd talk about. So she has a massive role in the local Gaelic club, Sean McDermott's, and she's done stuff like organising coaches. I mean, she's, goes to every single game, whether that be underage, whether that be the girls, whether that be the male team. On top of that, it's the charity work she does, like for the Birmingham Lions. I'd say it's all testament to her giving, selfless nature. You know, she goes above and beyond. But yeah, so that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Powell. Marie McCarthy, what would you like to tell the committee?
Hi. Good morning, Chair. I've known Caroline Dowling for many years, and she's always supported myself with numerous events, both in business and personal, and I've held many events at Casey Joe's Public House and Restaurant, and always ensured that the premises are appropriate for their proposed use, with the layout and the condition exemplary. And Caroline has always endeavoured to the best of her ability to manage the premises responsible. I've just lately had my mother's wake in there, and again, it was all done safely under COVID rules. At no time was there any anything there. So Caroline and her team work tirelessly to ensure each and every event is catered for in the most professional way, hence always a great success and a pleasure to deal with. I'm also a proud member of the Gaelic football team, Sean McDermott's, and as Casey Joe's Public House and Restaurant is the official hub for the teams, I spend a lot of my time meeting my young friends and old, fathers, sons, mothers, daughters, and many other members of the Birmingham community on the weekends after Sunday games. Caroline's work within the community is endless, raising much needed funds for the homeless in Birmingham, and I would utilise through my business utilising the premises to assist and support where we can to ensure significant funds for various charities are raised throughout the year. I am disappointed that Casey Joe's has not reopened, as myself and a lot of the Birmingham Irish business community, our members of the West Midlands Business Group, have had to delay our proposed meetings, which were due to be held after the 19th of July, when we could all safely meet together. And I would be grateful if you could relook at your decision, as a lot of our elderly single community families football teams have all been affected by this sudden change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The licensing officer has just indicated that he wants to say something.
Yes, Chair, just to confirm that the premises were able to reopen as of the 20th of July as a result of that hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, Ms McCarthy, for that. So on to Mr. McMenamin.
Mr. McMenamin, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to speak in regard to Caroline's suitability to be a licensee. First of all, I would echo the comments made by Michael Power and Marie McCarthy. To put things in context, I have known Caroline somewhere between 35 to 40 years, so an extensive period of time, and a large proportion of that time, Caroline has been a licensee and a number of different establishments, including the present one, Casey Joe's. I too am part of the community that Marie and Michael described, the sports club that is based from Casey Joe's. I've been involved as an underage player, and then throughout my adult life as a player and a coach and a mentor to both the underage and adult teams. Caroline's role within the club is a significant one. She has taken responsibility to assist the likes of myself, looking after underage children in order to make sure that safeguarding rules were followed. She's accompanied me on many trips, and Michael mentioned the word mother in his statement. She has not just been a mentor, she's also cared for the children and for the adults, and she's watched the transition of many of those young people into adult life, and as a licensee she has put in place rules and procedures to make sure those young adults are safe when they reach the age to actually enter licensed premises and partake in the drinking of alcohol. I've witnessed numerous times, I've got many examples of where Caroline has taken control of situations that were at risk of getting out of hand. She's got a very engaging personal style. She can communicate at all levels, and I've watched her diffuse situations that were potentially going to cause trouble in the pub, but I've also witnessed her prevent people from entering the premises who she knew personally, and regardless of the relationship with that individual or their family, she has taken a stance to make sure that no disorder or people who have consumed alcohol elsewhere enter her premises to cause any risk of disturbance or trouble. The other people mentioned her work in the community. I'm very proud of the work, particularly during the COVID period, that the club has done for the homeless and unfortunately deprived people in the city. And Caroline, it's not just allowing use of her premises to facilitate that. She actually takes a key role and assists both financially, but also with organising. So in summary, I would say having, and again, putting things in context, I've worked in law enforcement for over 30 years. I retired in 2013. I've unfortunately had to deal with many incidents in licensed premises in that time. Caroline Dowling is one of the best licensees I've ever come into contact with, and I have no doubt that she is responsible, suitable, and as I say, I've personally witnessed her controlling her premises and the people who frequent it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So now, Carol Scanlon.
I think it's already all been said about Caroline. Through young people involved in sport, particularly GAA, the young people involved in dance and music, through her contributions, these children and young adults have been given the opportunity to improve their skills, to travel nationally and internationally, and more importantly, remain involved in a healthy and fulfilling weekly activity in a sound environment. I have worked with Caroline for several years, and I am also in the licensing trade. And indeed, I gained all my experience under Caroline's guidance before obtaining my own premises. We've always kept a close relationship in our profession. I know Caroline as a hard-working professional who takes great pride in her premises and her reputation. She is so well respected by staff, customers and colleagues. The unfortunate incident of recent months does not reflect her absolute professional behaviour.
Thank you. And then finally, Angela Gilbride.
Thank you, Chair. I can only reiterate what everybody else has said. There's very little for me to say apart from supporting their comments wholly. What I would say is, in one of my other roles as a school governor, I have to be very aware of the 7 Nolan principles of public life. And although Caroline isn't holding a public job, she absolutely and totally personally upholds those principles. She is selfless. She helps other people. She looks out for people within the community who may be isolated. She has enormous personal and professional integrity. She's objective. She is open to listening to people. She is responsible and accountable. She is open, she's honest, and she shows great leadership. Other than that, I can only confirm and reiterate what everybody else has said. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Gilbride, and thank you everybody for your comments and for sticking to time. And of course, we do take all those into account in terms of the decision that we make. Thank you very much. I will ask members though for any questions they have. Councillor Straker-Wells, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair. No, thank you.
Councillor Locke?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So thank you again, everybody, for making those representations today. Okay, so we'll now move on to Mr. Craig, the representative of the licensee, to make his presentation. Mr. Craig?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, what you have before you, as I understand it from colleagues within the council, is an unprecedented number of supporting representations. It's right to say from time to time you will have petitions presented before you, which I personally think should carry very little weight. Or sometimes you'll get a generic letter that somebody's copied and pasted in, and other people have put their name at the bottom. But what you have here is an overwhelming number of individually crafted, individually considered representations on behalf of Caroline that actually speak enormously to her character and her abilities as a licence holder. I've asked her before the hearing. You obviously you're aware of the chronology in relation to this review and that the licence was suspended. I'm grateful for the indication from West Midlands Police. So basically what happened in terms of my involvement, I got a phone call on the Saturday the 3rd from a criminal solicitor that I know, who's known Caroline for 40 years. 40 years. And I spoke to Caroline, and they were unaware of the position with regards to the suspension of the licence. As it happens, when I rang the premises, Constable Reid was actually there, bizarrely. So I had a conversation with him, and the premises that then closed. And from that point, engagement was undertaken with West Midlands Police. And you will be aware, of course, and in fact, Councillor Straker-Wells was sat on that committee. That initially the licence, the application to lift the suspension against the licence was refused. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on the past, but I have to say I feel duty bound. It's my job to protect my clients, my job to support my client, and where I think that's the right thing to do. And I have to say I think that decision was wrong. You have somebody here with 34 years experience who was simply asking to be given a chance when there'd been an incident at the premises. And yes, there were issues around COVID compliance, but anyone opening their eyes in the last few weeks, looking around the country when the England games were going on, would recognise that it was becoming increasingly difficult to get people to comply with the rule of six as the date of July the 19th approached. And I remember I just turned up. I remember exactly. I got the decision notice. I was driving up to my parents' house in Manchester. I was driving up. I noticed the decision notice just as I was leaving, but I didn't read it. So I didn't get to see it till I got up to Manchester. And I remember ringing Caroline. She'd already read a newspaper article letting her know that the application had been refused. And she was absolutely, I have to say this, she was absolutely devastated by that news. She was, in fact, broken by it, I would say, at the time. She was talking about quitting. She was talking about, wanting to she'd had enough, and she felt dreadfully upset by that, not just in terms of herself, but in terms of the people who go into her premises, who she has known, as you can see from the testimonials in her favour for several years. And I mean, obviously her position has changed in relation to that, but I just think it's important for me to say this to you as a licensing subcommittee. You have a difficult job to do. There will be times when there are incidents that are of a serious nature that require a swift and decisive action, and I'm certainly not going to ever argue about the initial suspension of a licence, ordinarily at least, in circumstances where somebody has had their jaw broken. But I would just invite you, not just for Caroline's sake, but for other clients of mine in the future, when someone has that level of experience, and especially that level of experience in a city like this, I would just invite you to perhaps take that into account more than I felt was the case on the previous occasion, because what you have here is a series of representations that speak to her abilities, her character, the way she runs these premises, how well she is regarded in the local community, how she goes the extra mile for. And look, from the minute I walked in these premises, which was on the Monday following the 3rd, so that was the 5th, it was obvious to me within a very few short minutes of her conscientiousness, the regard she had for the customers that come into her premises, and her responsibilities as a licence holder, and the number of supporting representations that you are in receipt of are indicative of that. I don't intend, obviously, anybody who's made representations today, I certainly don't intend to read their representations out, but I think this is a public hearing, and I think it's important that Caroline, what people have said about Caroline, to some extent, is recognised through me. So I just invite you to turn to page 21, firstly, in the agenda pack. I don't actually know this is Mr. McMenamin's daughter or not, but just my name is, and obviously that's a blank, I'm 24 years of age. I've been attending Casey Jones since the age of 18, and I've always felt safe in the care of Caroline and the Dowling family. I'm currently living at home with my father, who's been in the West Midlands Police Force for over a decade, so I suspect it's not, in fact, and always been happy with me attending this venue, and has not seen it as a problematic place to be. Being a police officer's daughter, I tend to get watched like a hawk, and in a nutshell, he has always been strict with where I go and the people I am surrounded by. My father was based at Acox Green Station for many years, so if there be any concern, I would definitely have been restricted from this bar. Then invite you to turn to page 23. I mean, I've just picked out things that have caught my eye, and I apologise to anybody who's made representations who's listening in. But I've obviously, I can't read everybody's representations out, so I've just picked things that have caught my eye. Casey Jones is a safe place for young people. Caroline knows the young generation and takes no nonsense from them, which they respect and understand the boundaries. She and her team make it fun and safe place for people of all ages to socialise. Parents trust her and know their teenage children, that's 18 plus, will have a good night and will be safe. I have known Caroline to send people home in taxis if they had too much drink, or call the parents to come and fetch them. She promotes a safe and fun environment. Over the years, my family have all had many enjoyable nights at Casey Jones without any problems. I personally do not drink, and I'm fully aware of my surroundings, and I've never once felt unsafe whilst there. If anyone is becoming unruly, Caroline and her team stamp it out before it gets out of hand. Just invite you now to turn to page 29. Through working there, I had the pleasure of working with Caroline for 8 years. Through working there and knowing Kaz, I see the work she puts in to make it like a community, from doing shopping for her elderly customers or making us walk them over the road back home to the care home. I still see a lot of them and share a drink with them now. Without Casey's, I don't know how I would keep in touch with them. There is not many places where you would sing old and young mixed like this, which I think is unique and special, and all down to Caroline. Unfortunately, Kaz has lost a few customers over the years due to old age and ill health. If they have passed, Kaz does everything she can to help them with funeral arrangements, as sometimes these people don't have a lot of family. I have made a lot of friends in Casey's of all ages, ranging from 18 to 80 plus. Without Casey's, I don't know how I would keep in contact or see these people. It's a community hub, and that's down to Caroline. Through working there and drinking there, I see the way Caroline works. No one leaves Casey's without being offered a taxi at the end of the night. She taught us to do regular toilet checks and how to tell if someone else had had too much to drink. Now I invite you to turn to page 46. Don't worry, there's only about 3 more. I'm not going to dwell on it forever. As I say, I think it's important that these people have a voice today. I moved over to Birmingham from Ireland 4 years ago, completely on my own. It was definitely a nervous experience at 18, and I was always homesick. I then discovered Casey Joe's pub and everyone that went to it, including Caroline, who owns the pub. It felt like a home away from home, and still to this day it does. I've met lifelong friends from being welcomed into that pub and community, and it's made being in Birmingham feel like home. I've never once felt unsafe in Casey Joe's. I've always felt looked after by Caroline and her staff team, ensuring we are okay, and at the end of the night, not leaving until everyone is home and has a way home, sometimes even going out of their way to drop people who can't get taxis home. Now I invite you to turn to page 50. Caroline has regular customers who have pension age and they visit almost daily. Caroline looks out for these elderly customers, offer them a friendly ear and advice, as well as taking time to converse with them. Caroline has known on many occasions to bring them meals and has accompanied them to medical appointments when they have felt alone and anxious. Each year, COVID permitting, Caroline arranges for her customers, friends and family to provide gift bags for the homeless, and has been known to collect in excess of 500 gift bags to distribute via Birmingham homeless charities. 2 local families whose son, when aged 4 and 12, were diagnosed with leukemia. 6 years on, they are still fighting this cancer and receiving treatment. Caroline has held charity fundraising evening in support of both families. Thousands of pounds have been raised for curing leukemia, as well as significant amounts of money raised and gifted to the families to help lessen the financial burden through such challenging, worrying times. Caroline has hosted and covered the cost of these funerals of people known to her who have died, leaving no next of kin or little financial monies to pay for their funeral. Caroline and her family have discreetly covered the costs and brought together friends to remember the deceased person. Penultimate 156. Obviously, we all know it's a pub that's rooted in the Irish community. Due to its popularity, I've been on site on St Patrick's Day Parade when it's full, yet people are still being turned away by Caroline on the front door when it could have been easy for the business to turn a blind eye and take the extra money in the till. I've been there on every other type of occasion, for birthday parties, bank holidays, and to end of season awards, when again, Casey's is the go-to place. And at the end of the night, when patrons leave, it remains a respectable place for neighbours in the area. Again, all this speaks of the character of the place that Kaz has allowed to frequent. She has supported local artists, given them a venue to perform, collecting for local food banks and charities, as well as the huge impact of the local Gaelic football club. This will no doubt come across as a biased reference. However, I know I speak for my family that Kaz and her family should be back in business, which obviously, hopefully, that's the path we're going to find. And lastly, page 61. Whilst I studied at university, I worked for Caroline at Casey Joe's, and I've continued to visit the premises in the subsequent years as a customer. Throughout this time as an employee and a customer, I've always felt that Caroline commanded the respect of everyone who visited the pub and never questioned whether this was a safe place to work or drink. Over these years, I've witnessed Caroline and the staff at Casey Joe's deal with potentially difficult situations very easily, and I've never had a bad experience in this pub. Caroline has many years of experience as a licence holder and has taught me a lot about how to operate when not working around the bar. I could go on, I don't intend to. Yeah, I had a phone call with somebody who had 34 years experience in the trade who was talking about quitting a couple of weeks ago. And I think it would be a terrible shame for the licence trade if we lost people like Caroline with the wealth of experience that she has in the trade, because you can see there that running a licensed business, of course, is about generating revenue and making profit, but it's about more than that. And of course, you, as a subcommittee, often see the downside to the licensed trade and the negative impact that can have upon the wider community. But what you have here is clear evidence of a licensed premises that are central to the local community, that bring people together, that provide support for people, that provide company for people. And actually, when you think about the licensing objectives and you break them down, that's what being a good operator is about, isn't it? It's about thinking about your wider community, about bringing them together in a positive way, giving them somewhere that they can congregate together. But all equally, in those types of environments, things like crime and disorder are less likely to happen. If the licensee commands the respect of the customers that go in there, then they're much less likely to make a nuisance. And you've heard endless testimony from various people who frequent the premises about how they feel it's a safe environment and how they feel comfortable about their children going in there. So you have clear evidence of a license holder here who actively and purposefully and positively promotes the licensing objectives and has done for 34 years. I just want to make one more point. I hope I'm not going to be accused of being slightly sexist here, but in my time in the license trade, I remember when I was at Whitbread. I was a sales manager at Whitbread, and a lot of the older reps, I was 21 when I started there, a lot of the older reps used to talk with great reverence about female licensees who ran challenging pubs in difficult areas, and they always used to say to me that often a female would be better equipped for a whole host of reasons to deal with those types of establishments. And then my next job was as an area manager for a pub company, and my boss, a guy called Mike Jackson, who I learnt more from than anybody else, frequently when I had some tough pubs in Southampton and Portsmouth that I was area manager for, often steered me towards female applicants for those types of premises, because a strong woman is more than capable of running an establishment like that, and in many ways can provide both a supporting ear to people, but be under no illusions that they can run the premises in a way that's robust and keeps the place under control. And that's what you have here. You have somebody who's a credit to this city, she's a credit to the premises, and I would invite you accordingly to follow the agreed position between the licence holder and the West Midlands Police. And I know in so doing you will certainly take into account the unprecedented number of supporting representations to back up what I'm saying about Caroline from people who are probably better equipped to comment on that than me. People who've seen with their own eyes the positive impact that she has on their lives and the wider community. And so for those reasons, I would invite you to follow that path. I don't know if you have any questions for me, or perhaps more personally for Caroline.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Councillor Locke, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Councillor Straker-Wells?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure it's a question, but to thank Mr. Craig for his acknowledgement that decisions are often made as a result of a balanced judgment. We are the Committee of Licensing and Public Protection, and that's uppermost in our minds of the licensing objectives. But also thank you for displaying and taking us through the very eloquent representations. One would have to be endowed with a heart of stone not to be moved by what people have said. And we thank you for that. We will be considering also the fact, I have no doubt, that this is a joint representation in a sense with the police. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just one question from me, Mr. Craig. In summary, what
is it for me or Caroline?
Well,
I can turn my laptop. That's all. That's
okay. No, it's for you really, because in summary, we've seen obviously the modifications which are proposed and agreed. In summary, what would you say they will achieve relative to the previous position?
They will provide a more structured framework for Caroline to operate in. The previous licence was granted in, I believe, in 2009. Mr. Kennedy will doubtless correct me if I'm wrong on that. He has done before. They are conditions of some antiquity. I suppose doing my job like an art, somebody who works in art, you look at conditions and you realise what sort of era they come from, and it was obvious to me that they were at least a decade old and needed tightening, because conditions on a license should be enforceable and precise and capable of being met and appropriate to the promotion of the licensure objectives, because they benefit everybody. It means the license holder understands what they need to do. There's no ambiguity around that, and equally it gives the responsible authorities a more structured means to enforce things. So that's the position. I was sorry, I would just, and I haven't dwelled on this too much. Obviously, you've got a good position. So condition 15 went on. So all the conditions that were attached in the previous hearing went on as interim steps. I was concerned around condition 15 because I know obviously how much the Gaelic Athletic Association is part and parcel of the very heart of this licensed premises, and I was worried that the condition as it stood would prohibit them from showing hurling games, for example, without having to undergo the unwieldy task, because a conditional license should be proportionate to the business as well. It shouldn't be overburdensome. And so I've reworded that and got agreement from Constable Reader on Friday in relation to that condition. And so that was all I would invite you to do. I don't know how we're going to deal with that on an interim basis, but that may be a question for later on. But certainly I would just invite you to delete condition 15 on the attached and replace it with the one that's agreed with West Midlands Police. to reinstate Caroline permanently as the DPS, which, given the testimonials, is the only logical path to follow. I would respectfully submit, and of course maintain the position as it is now, effectively.
Okay. So, would the licensee like to say anything to us directly?
Do you want to? Go on.
Hello.
Hi, I'd just like to thank everybody who made representations on my behalf. I'm not going to lie, I was really upset about what was. I've never been written in a paper in my life, and I was really upset what was written in the paper. I don't think it gave a true reflect of who I am, what I've done. I'm not somebody who talks a lot. I've never been in front of a licensing committee in 30 years. I found this all quite difficult. I'm more a hands-on person who deals with people, deals with the public, just does my job. Probably forgot a lot of things that people have wrote to me in the last couple of weeks, with even old people who haven't got email handing letters through the front door, of just doing daily things. And as a family, like my dad said, if you do something for somebody and you remind them, then it becomes a favour. So by doing something for somebody, to me, it's just doing it because I want to do it, whether it's dropping somebody home in a taxi, whether it's doing someone's shopping, whether it's looking after. I've done my job because I like it. Things do happen in pubs. You can't be everywhere. You can't be there all the time. We do our best. I think, unfortunately, because this had happened coming towards the end of COVID, and as I said before, we started to relax a bit because there was 2 weeks left. Put my hands up to that. I think because the World Cup had started and everything was getting a bit busier, I admitted to that. But I just hope that you take into consideration what everybody said today, and we can sort of get back to doing what we do at Casey Joe's. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Is that your representation?
It is, yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, we're into summing up now. Now, you don't have to say anything coming first to the persons making representations, but you're entitled, if you wish, to add something. Does anybody from those providing the supporting representations want to add anything in summary? This is not new stuff. This is a summary of what you previously said, but we have noted it, of course, so you don't have to repeat anything if you don't wish. Anybody of the 5 persons who have spoken to us in support of the licensee want to comment further? No? Okay, thank you very much. And then would West Midlands Police like to make a closing submission?
Thank you, Chair. First, we'd just like to thank Caroline for what she just mentioned there. Like I said, it's nice when people take ownership of anything that's gone wrong. Sometimes people are quick to point the blame at other people, but as mentioned in my representation, they've held their hands up, they've admitted where the flaws were, and they've rectified them. So as mentioned previously, we just asked that the interim conditions, bar condition 15, be imposed on the licence as a result of this hearing. And then, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And finally, Mr. Craig, anything you want to add in summing up?
No, I would agree with what Mr. Charles has said about the interim steps. They're in place now. They're going to go in place in 21 days. It would be daft if they didn't go on now. So yeah, you can impose those as an interim, save for 15, please. I don't think there's a great deal more I can add other than to thank West Midlands Police for the way they've collaborated in getting us to where we are now. It's a good example of I think partnership working is the buzz phrase, and certainly I know that that Caroline. I know she said it, but I know how overwhelmed she's been by the support she's had, and I think that speaks to her and how she runs the premises. And I don't think I need to add anything to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for your contributions today. It's very important that we hear that sort of direct testimony, particularly in a case like that. And we will now adjourn to make our decision. And I ask all parties to leave the Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session with the subcommittee to make that decision. We'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within the appropriate time limits. So thank you again, everybody, for your contributions, and the City Council officers will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Craig.